Doug Ford continues to push back against Donald Trump's comments on Canada, including his comments to make Canada America's 51st state. Ford reiterated his position at an event in Ontario earlier today. It followed an appearance by him on Fox News last night. And the CBC's Megan Fitzpatrick is on the story for us, and she joins us live from the Ontario Legislature in Toronto. So, Megan, what can you tell us about Ford's messaging on both sides of the border? It was interesting to see the Fox News host really kind of pushing back, sort of saying that he was quite insulted by Canadians not wanting to become Americans.
Yeah, Ford has had a busy week so far. Andrew, talking to American journalists. Earlier in the week, he was on CNN. Last night, it was prime time on Fox News, a network we know the president-elect Donald Trump is a frequent viewer of. And we've learned Ford will be back on CNN tonight, making an appearance on Anderson Cooper's program. So we will be watching for the comments he makes on that show tonight. What he was saying earlier today, though, here in Ontario at an appearance at the Darlington Power Plant, he is sort of reacting on two fronts, right? Because we do have those comments from Trump yesterday about Canada becoming the 51st state and using economic force. But then there's still the looming issue of the tariffs that Trump has been threatening to impose on Canada. So Ford has messaging on both fronts. With the 51st state idea today, he called it ridiculous and says that idea needs to be dropped. He was asked, though, if it's worrisome at all that Trump keeps making these comments and escalated those comments yesterday, of course. And Ford was fairly blunt in saying it does concern him when the president of the most powerful country in the world makes those kinds of statements. But then he added, Andrew, it's not going to happen. And he reiterated in his comments today that Canada is not for sale. And he keeps in his interviews with the American networks and today pivoting to try and push the message that the two countries are stronger when they work together, but working together as independent countries, he said today. And he was pitching this idea of kind of a joint alliance. He called it a renewed alliance between Canada and America when it comes to energy security. And he's dubbed this the Fortress AmCan plan. And it calls for a number of things like streamlining approvals for new nuclear reactors, forming some working groups. He's outlining a number of things. And the reason he's doing that is because he wants to be able to point to concrete initiatives that Canada is doing and Ontario is doing when he's having conversations with U.S. lawmakers, which he says he's doing constantly every single day. He says he is talking to senators and representatives in Congress or in the House, as well as governors. And he is trying very hard to push back on the tariff issue. So on that front, his message to Americans is that the tariffs will hurt them. Will hurt Canadians, but it will also make goods more expensive for them. And he was asked today to explain further how he thinks Canada, or Ontario specifically, could and should retaliate if the tariffs are put in place by Trump. Ford has talked before about potentially cutting off energy sales and supply to the U.S. states that Ontario supplies it to. Here's what else he said about how Ontario could possibly play a role in retaliating.
Without divulging to our friends in the U.S., we have a whole host of products that we ship up that we're going to be targeting, especially in the 17 states we deal with as their number one export destination. You turn up the heat on them. Believe me, they will be in the president's ear when these companies are laying people off because they aren't shipping products, or they are shipping it at a 25% higher cost.
And he also called on Prime Minister Justin Trudeau to keep fighting against these potential tariffs, saying he is still the Prime Minister for now, despite the resignation that is coming. It hasn't taken effect yet. And he says the federal government, remember a few weeks ago, they announced that border plan? Ford says they need to act on it. Don't just announce it. The Americans need to see action on it. So he will be making that call when the premiers meet face-to-face with Trudeau next week. And we know the premiers, Andrew, today have their own meeting, a virtual one, later this afternoon to keep talking about how they can and should be responding to now these sort of double threats from Trump, both on the tariffs and this whole idea of forcing Canada to join the United States. So they will keep talking. And Ford also pushing back on that comment that Trump said yesterday when he was saying Canada doesn't need, the U.S. doesn't need the goods from Canada, doesn't need cars, doesn't need dairy. Ford says his message, again, when he's talking to Americans is yes, they do, that they can't do it alone, he said. And again, trying to push that message that the tariffs will hurt Americans as well and make things more expensive. So likely he will be trying to reiterate those messages when he does yet another appearance on an American network talking to Americans tonight.
Megan, thank you. That is the CBC's Megan Fitzpatrick live in Toronto.